was that I wrote this song, and then everyone started calling me a worship leader. And I was like, what makes you think I'm a worship leader? And they said, well, you wrote a worship song. And I thought, well, I just was writing a song about creation and about, all of the earth bringing glory to God. And they said, well, that's a worship song, so you're a worship leader. So that was kind of how all that started. And really, how I began this whole adventure as a worship leader, I'd say probably started my freshman year in college. And I had 2 freshman years in college. Has anyone done that? You have your first one that you think you know what you want to do, and then you go down that path and it doesn't work. So then you go, okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to pick a different school. I'm going to do something different. Well, that's what happened to me. And my first freshman year, I was studying music at the University of South Carolina, and it was not too far from where I'd grown up. And I was dating a very, very good-looking guy. This is very important to the story, okay? And this very good-looking guy, we had grown up together, and he was a baseball player. Do we have any athletes in the house? Any? There we go. He was a baseball player, and I was a musician, so I wasn't very athletic. I wasn't very coordinated. None of that. So I'm dating this very good-looking guy, and I had some scholarship money for this university I was attending, and things are going pretty well in life. And I remember going home to visit him one weekend, and we were playing football, which we're the only people in the world that call this football instead of this football. So we were playing American football, trying to, and this guy, Martin, was holding the football above his head, and I was jumping to try to grab it. And somehow, I don't really know how it happened, but somehow he turned this way, and I fell on my arm. And I heard it snap. So, all of that to say, I had in fact broken my arm. And I ended up going back to the university that Sunday night, and having a broken arm, I actually had to drop out of a lot of my classes. And I was on this road to having a music performance degree, and there was just this complete left turn in my life. And I was so mad at this boy that I was dating that I broke up with him because he had broken my arm, basically. So, but we later got back together and got married, so it's okay. Very happy ending to that story. I forgave him because, there's grace. Anyway, but all of that to say, even though it was a hard transition in my life, it was a very important transition. Because I was going down this road, I was majoring in string-based performance, and I was fairly talented in that area, and I was using those talents and those gifts as big arrows that pointed right here, right towards me. And I feel like that was a time in my life that the Lord got a hold of my heart and reminded me that these gifts were from Him, and they were meant to be used as arrows pointing towards Him, not towards me. And it was helpful also that He showed me, Laura, I gave you those gifts, and I can take them away. I feel like, do y'all ever, whoever has kids, do y'all have time out? Y'all do time out here in Denmark? Well, that's what we do back home. When someone is when a kid is misbehaving, they put them in time out. I feel like God put me in time out. And that's really where I learned that lesson of using my gifts to give Him glory. And I'd say that's the best place to start when I think about how to talk about how to be a worship leader. So, I want to give you 2 easy tips on how to be a worship leader. Just 2. And they're so easy to remember. You're just going to think this is so silly, how easy these are to remember. So how to be a worship leader. Number 1, be a worshiper. Isn't that simple? Doesn't that sound pretty easy? There's so many aspects of worship, so many definitions for worship. I'll tell you the simplest one I've ever heard was by an author named John Piper. Y'all heard of John Piper? Anyway, He's back to the States, and he says that worship means worth-ship. Worth-ship. Basically saying it's just giving God the worth that he deserves. Showing him that weightiest part of your life. Saying that he alone is worthy of our time, our attention, our resources. And so this idea of worship, of giving God the praise that he is due. Let me ask you guys another question. Where do you see worship in the Bible? And this is a very easy question. You could pretty much... I'll go ahead and give you the answer. You can say any book of the Bible and you'd be right. This is like Sunday school. Do y'all have Sunday school here? In Sunday school, the answer to every question was Jesus. And there was a Sunday school teacher once that asked the class, he said, I want to describe something for you. You tell me who it is. He said, he's furry, has a big bushy tail, and collects acorns and eats them. And everyone's just stumped. And one of the kids kind of like sheepishly raises his hand and says, well, it sounds like a squirrel, but I bet it's Jesus. So all that to say, where do we see worship in the Bible? Jesus.
Paul and Silas in the prisons.
Yes. Whoa, what a great story. Paul and Silas in the prisons. Where else?
The Psalms.
The Psalms, just full of it. Aren't you so glad that God gave us prayers to pray when we don't know what to pray? 150 chapters of prayers that we didn't have to write. What a gift. What else? How about in the beginning? Genesis. Moses? Yeah. Standing on holy ground. All the way from Genesis to Revelation. We see it in the whole Bible, and we'll look at some of these scriptures. Let me ask you another question. This is a really easy one. Is worship something that's limited to just Sundays? No. Oh, good. There you are. You're correct. You are right. Worship isn't something. And this is, as silly as this is, it's a great reminder. How many of y'all are dating someone? There you are. Okay, how many of you guys is your significant other here with you this weekend? You're not dating. You're married to her. Well, I guess you're still dating. Is there anyone else oh, you didn't break up? Is anyone else that they're just dating? This is going to be a great opportunity to embarrass someone. Okay, I'll use you, Jim. Is your wife here? Where is she? And tell me your name again.
Jim.
No, her name. Her name's Jim too? Jim and Jim. Miranda? Maria. Okay, Maria. How would you feel if Jim only told you that he loved you on Valentine's Day? How would that go over?
Not so good.
Not so good. Yes. I've even thought I've heard this example before. And my sweet husband, Martin, you know, the one that broke my arm. My sweet husband, Martin, we've been married almost 6 years. It has been wonderful. But what if Martin came to me and said, Laura, I love you so much. I want to be fully devoted to you for 364 days a year. That's a lot of days. What would my question be? What about that other day? And if he was like, well, I might just want to do what I want to do that day. How would that go over? How can you imagine how well that would go over? But the whole point is that devotion isn't really devotion if it's not fully committed devotion. And so as worshipers, it's a 365-day-a-year thing. It's a 24/7 deal. It's everything we do. It's the way that we live. Our lives must be fully devoted to God as His worshipers. Tell you something else I've learned as a worship leader is that it kind of goes right along the same vein. You can't lead someone somewhere that you're not going regularly yourself. Have y'all found that to be true? I'll give you little example. We came into town Wednesday, and we went to Stee. Where is that again? Moon. We went to Moon. Has anyone been to Moon? The cliffs of Moon? Which, by the way, we went and saw these cliffs yesterday, and we come back, and we're having dinner at the bed and breakfast where we stayed, and we tell the owner that we went to see these cliffs, and he goes, "Oh, no one goes to see the cliffs in March." He said it's the most dangerous time of the year. They have avalanches all the time. I said, well, thanks for mentioning that earlier today. But anyway, so we hear that there are amazing trails back in the woods, all through that area. We hear that, though we never found them, because the snow had completely covered up any semblance of a trail that could possibly be found. So what was supposed to be, I think maybe a 15-minute walk there and a 15-minute walk back, was 2.5 hours of us wandering around lost in the woods. I don't get scared much, but I was a little bit fearful. I could not, I can't tell you how thankful I was to see our rental car at the end of this road that we had walked on forever. We just literally went in circles. But if you contrast that picture of us wandering in the wilderness of Moon, it's Moon, right? If you contrast that with me going to visit my grandmother. My grandmother's house, my grandmother actually passed away a few years ago, but we still go back and visit her home. I have some cousins that live in that town. And she lives up in the North Georgia mountains. And when we're winding around those hills on that road, there's certain landmarks that I see that let me know how close I am. And there's certain things, there's a big patch of sunflowers on a hillside that whenever I see them, it makes me smile because I think about being a little girl and walking over there with my grandmother. And then every turn I see something else, and the closer I get to her house, I get more excited because it just brings back this sentimental feeling that I have. And I share with you that because as worship leaders, if we are not worship leaders first, then we're leading people somewhere that we're just really not all that familiar with. If we're not spending time alone with the Lord, reading His Word, truly going just to a real intimate place with Him. You know, the Psalms that someone mentioned earlier, Psalm 51 says, "Search me and know me, Lord." If we're not sitting before the Lord in our own homes, in our own closets, when no one else is around, saying, "Lord, search me and know me." If we're not doing that, it's going to be a lot harder for us to lead someone there. Also, just because the more you go to that place of intimate worship with the Lord, the more you will be excited about taking others with you. Just like one of my grandmother's house. I took a huge group of people from my church. It was just amazing. I got so excited, and I could tell that they weren't thinking it was near as cool as I did. And they got tired of hearing me go, "Oh, that was the place that I went, and this over there," you know. But anyway, there's just an excitement when you've experienced it, when you've gone there repeatedly, and it makes you want to bring others with you. And that's a huge part of worship leading.